Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. To dissolve or not to dissolve, that is the question that Lone Oak voters will have to answer on November the 4th. With us today are the Mayor of Lone Oak, Kimberly Stevens, and Lone Oak Commissioner Roger Dew. Welcome to the program. Now, before we get started, I've got a pretty good idea you answer that question, and I also want to say that our program is open to the other side. If anyone from the other side wishes to be on the program to rebut, please feel free to give me a call at 534-3270, because on our program we like to have both sides of an issue. So having said that, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Why should Lone Oak residents vote no on November the 4th?
That is a very good question. And we believe that they should vote no to give the city of Lone Oak the chance to grow and become the community that we all want to enjoy.
Now that's interesting. We use the word community because I live in Mayfield, so I'm a foreigner to this whole issue. But I have noticed that on some of the signs that the opposition has, they say something like, let's make Lone Oak a community again. Mm-hmm. And the implication is what? You're not a community now?
That's what they would like to imply. Kind of to get to the root of that, you've got to look at the history of Lone Oak, and it was incorporated in 1979. And when it was incorporated to protect the businesses.
How so?
They did not want the city of Paducah to annex them, and they were afraid that that was going to happen. So out of fear of the city of Paducah moving into their area.
Thinking they had to pay business taxes?
Business taxes, higher expenses, more government involvement in the way they run things. So to stop that, they incorporated. Now when they incorporated, they chose to incorporate the smallest amount of land with the smallest amount of residents that was required under the law. And
how many was that, do you know?
I don't know the number of residents because it's fluctuated, but a half a mile square was the smallest, and it's a 6th-class city.
What is the population of Lone Oak today?
437, and as of 2007 figures that we have.
Mm-hmm. And so when they did that, one of the opposition, his desire was to have a 2.5 cent per 100 tax rate, which that right there shows you that he wasn't concerned with running a city. They were just concerned with a protection zone. The tax rate ended up being 30 cents per 100 back nearly 30 years ago. And they never did anything after that. I think there was 2 attempts to annex. Neither attempt was successful. But
the city of Paducah, you mean?
The city of Lone Oak attempted to annex.
Oh, extra area.
Grow.
I see.
And neither of those were successful because they weren't planned very well. And so in creating such a small area, they kind of boxed themselves in, which then has set up the problem that we have now, which is a very small tax base, which is leading to some of the issues that they're having with the city of Lone Oak. Mm-hmm. And so, we're thinking, we're trying to make it a community. We have a commission that is getting in there and trying to find solutions to some of the issues. And we're actually one of the first commissions to be trying to get out into the community and pull people in to everybody work on the situations.
Mm-hmm. So. I think the argument that at least I'm hearing is that if you do disincorporate, dissolve, mm-hmm. that you will still have adequate law enforcement as well as fire protection, that you all in effect will be like hard money. Mm-hmm. Your response to that?
I'd like to address that. I like to look at it like a teacher-student ratio. You look at the population of McCracken County, subtract the population of Paducah and Lone Oak, and you look at the protection. I had the honor of speaking with the sheriff a couple of weeks ago, and we talked a little bit about this. And presently they have 3 to 5 patrolling beats. That's 3 to 5 officers to cover the whole county of McCracken County. I've got some numbers here I'd like to share with you. Of course, these are 2007 numbers, and of that date, McCracken County, that's including both cities and the county, was 64,765. Paducah was 25,539. And of course, we have 437 people. And if you subtract us from that, that leaves the county with 38,753 people. Also, I'd like to mention the size. McCracken County is 251 square miles. Paducah is 19.5, and we're extremely small, 0.3. So I crunched some numbers, and I looked at it. And it may be surprising to see, Paducah, not Paducah, but Lone Oak is a Class 6 city. And in my knowledge, it's the only Class 6 city to have a police department. Most of your Class 6 cities are small cities isolated out in the county. We butt up against Paducah, so we have the same problems that Paducah has. Looking at the numbers, and if you use the 3 to 5, I averaged it out with 4 deputies on patrol. They have 9,697 people to cover per officer and an area of 57.8 square miles. Paducah, on the other hand, has, at the last count that I had, 7 beats, and that equates to 3,648 people per beat, or 2.79 square miles. Now, Lone Oak, we're 437 people. That's 0.3. So who has really the best police coverage? And speaking with the sheriff, with us having our small department there, that opens him up to the other areas of McCracken County to cover.
Is the sheriff committed to either side in this, or is he staying out of this?
I'm not sure. He is going to be speaking at one of our meetings Monday night, and he may make that point known at that time.
Kind of the general gist that I get from him is he would not like to see our police department dissolved because, as Roger said, it allows them to concentrate on some higher crime areas and not have to worry about Lone Oak to the degree that they would have to. And he's indicated that it would be very difficult for them to give the same amount of coverage. Our officers, every night they're patrolling, they're checking every door, front and back door. They're responding to calls. They back the county up whenever they're not busy and if the county has something they need help with. So, with the size of McCracken County, the amount of people, it's going to be hard for a McCracken County Sheriff's deputy to give the service that Lone Oak Police Department does to the businesses and to the homes. They're not going to be able to get out and check every door. They're not going to be able to patrol past the houses on a regular basis.
Are your police officers, do they get the same training as a county deputy sheriff?
It is required by law. They go through the same
They go to the police academy?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
They are qualified, certified police officers.
Uh-huh.
That changed over. We had a marshal's department before.
I remember that.
And one of the things that we were, in our attempt at reorganizing the government, getting things to meet qualifications, was city insurance to, protect the city. And that was one of the requirements, that you drop a marshal's department and that you have a professionally trained police department. So that's what we did. We made an ordinance to create a police department, and the officers we have been academy trained.
You mentioned insurance. How would dissolving the city of Lone Oak affect insurance rates? Do you have any numbers on that?
Don't have any numbers on that. That's not a question that's even really come up. I imagine that their insurance rates would be basically what the county.
I'm surprised that wouldn't come up because, and again, this may be a poor analogy. I know that in the case of if you live in a city with a professional fire department, your insurance rates are less. And I just wondered, I know you all have a volunteer fire department, obviously, at Lone Oak, but would that affect the insurance rates?
I do not know.
Yeah, they would probably be about what they are now. I mean, maybe they would go up a little with losing that on-site police department.
I wondered about that too, yeah.
Yeah, but as far as, like I said, that's just not anything that has basically come up in any of the questions that we've been addressed with, so we haven't looked at it. We've been concentrating on answering the questions that we've been asked.
From your perspective, what generated this? I mean, if you've been going for almost 30 years, this is the first time I've seen those signs driving into work.
Yeah, there some bad feelings between us and certain individuals that, obviously we've tried our best to appease the situation, but the biggest thing that I've had come at me was, of course, the tax rate. And it is true that our tax rate is higher than the city of Paducah. And again, I point back to the past and how they incorporated it. And unfortunately, past administrations, because of what happened with the 20 years ago with the last attempt to annexation wasn't on the table. It was like, we're just hands off. All we're going to do is sit here and not do anything. So instead of annexing developing areas as the city of Paducah does, they've allowed it to develop around the city of Lone Oak, and none of that was incorporated in, so our tax base has remained stagnant.
While the city's grown. While the community's grown.
While the community has grown.
Right.
And fortunately, when you have tax base that remains stagnant, obviously expenses, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, they didn't have insurance. They didn't have to have academy-trained police officers. Utilities continue to go up. And so, you look at the tax rate and they're, this huge tax rate, it generates $190,000, which meets the minimum that we need to, that just takes care of insurance. That takes care of, utilities and keeping things, at a minimum. So, they're saying, you don't offer any services. Well, we can't. We have to grow, and that hasn't been on the agenda until this commission. And that was, they asked me to take over as mayor when the previous mayor resigned, and I said, this is what we got to do. We have to grow, and if we don't, then, we have to give it up, pretty much.
How would, if the city of Lone Oak is sustained in this vote, the government, how would you all then move to annex these areas?
Yes.
How does that process work?
You want me to answer it?
Yeah.
A lot of people have been disinformed about that. They have been told that because they are business owners, they are allowed to vote, like if we do dissolve and the city of Paducah were to want to annex us. That's not right. The only people that can vote are the people in the impacted area that happen to be residents, not business owners that live somewhere else, only residents.
So if you're registered to vote inside this 0.3 mile area, that's the people who get to vote in this election?
Yes.
In this election. Now, if it comes to annexation, one of the things, we have one annexation already underway. It was an annexation of commercial property. And that property, that's kind of a loophole in the law, and unfortunately you have to use strategy sometimes. So that's what we've done. Knowing at the moment, with our tax rate the way it is, there is no way possible that we would get a resident to voluntarily become a part of Lone Oak. I mean, that would be kind of silly on their part. So our strategic objective was, okay, we'll annex commercial property, get our tax rate down, then begin to offer, work towards offering other services that may entice residential community people to come into the city. So we have one phase of that. It's already underway. The second phase would start after the first of the year. Now with the first phase, when it goes through, that will bring our tax rate down to what it was 30 years ago. The second phase would get our tax rate down lower than the city of Paducah's. If we want to go down as far as we want to go, if we just want to maintain, the bare minimums, we could probably go down fairly low. Mm-hmm. But what we're going to look at, I've been in talks with Tad Long with New Cities Institutes, and they're with the Kentucky League of Cities, and after the first of the year, if we're still incorporated, he will come in and help us design strategies and a new vision and objective for the city of Lone Oak, which would bring together not just, right now we have a community where we kind of have a government doing its thing and then the community doing its thing. It was never pulled together. My vision is to see the government, the residents, and the business people all working together to create the community that they want to live in, which can be, any, recycling, any type of projects that the community is interested in, and that's something we can look at developing.
Mm-hmm. And another, I believe, false information has been put out to some of the businesses in the areas we intend to annex after we do survive this, that they would be given a voice in voting. And again, the only people that can vote, and I want to reemphasize that, are the residents that live within that area. And of course, Lone Oak is half commercial. And what we intend to incorporate is commercial. There are no residents that live in these areas. And by law, we are able to do that. Yes, the business owners can do a petition, which they have, and it has to be voted on. But the only people that can vote are the residents, and if there's no residents, no one can vote against it. Yeah. But I would like to talk a little bit about annexation. You hear in the news the mayor of Paducah stating that there is no intention to annex Lone Oak. Strangely though, and I've got a copy of it here, I have a copy of Paducah's annexation policy as published on their website, and I would like to share with you. It's about 2 or 3 sentences. The first paragraph of their annexation policy. Quoting, in October 2002, the City Commission adopted an annexation incentive policy which instructed staff to focus on more aggressive and creative annexation and economic development strategies. The city recognizes that its economic well-being is related to and in many respects dependent upon sustained growth of its population and tax revenue based through annexation of contiguous territories. Another interesting point, we started planning our annexation move in November 2007. Ironically, in a city commission meeting in Paducah on March the 18th, the fire chief and the city fire marshal were talking about areas. Actually, they displayed a PowerPoint presentation with a slide that stated and questioned about the dissolving of Lone Oak and the annexation of Lone Oak, and this was discussed in that city meeting. And it's hard for me to sit here and say that the mayor of Paducah has no intentions. There's over 150 businesses there in that Lone Oak area, and that would be a fine catch. And the reason we have got to stay a city is the same reason that they developed it in 1979. We have got to stop the growth of annexation, and that's a point that really bothers me. Also, the city of Paducah has done what's called corridor annexation on Highway 62, right down the easement of the highway so they could take in the country club of Paducah and so forth. If they were to dissolve all of that central area of Lone Oak, nothing could stop Paducah from going all the way to the county line of Graves County. I don't want it. I moved from Paducah to Lone Oak to be a citizen of Lone Oak, not a citizen of Paducah. And since the last census, Paducah and the county both have dropped on the average, about 1,500 to 1,600 people. We dropped about 20 people, which is pretty substantial also. So people are moving away from this area. And why? Why? And you have to question that. Paducah is so great. Why are people moving out? And I want to keep Lone Oak as Lone Oak. I know there's plans in the future for, a larger municipal government. I would probably be in favor of that. But at the minimum, you're talking 6 or 8 years. And in that time
By
frame,
municipal government, you mean?
combined,
A county. You're talking about merging a city
merger
and county,
of the
like,
city and the
like
county.
Nashville has.
Yes.
Which that
The metro
brings-
government.
That
Yes.
brings up another interesting reason why Lone Oak should stay a city. If we are a incorporated city, then we will have a representative on the commission to design the ordinance. There will be representatives from the city of Paducah, from McCracken County, and if Lone Oak is still a city, a representative from Lone Oak, who would be involved in making the ordinance that would go on the ballot to be voted on. And for me, when I look at that, I think, okay, we've got a seat at the table, so to speak, on something that could be a major impact. And if the people in Lone Oak dissolve Lone Oak right now, then they're going to lose that voice and lose the ability to help draft the future ordinance that could determine what the government would be like in a combined city-county government. And I think that it's important that we not walk away from that we be a part of that. If that comes to pass and we have a combined government, then all of this will not, would be a moot point because the city will dissolve anyway into a larger government. But until that happens, I think it would be very important that we stay a city and that we be a part of that process and have our voices heard.
So if this were to go through, you all would be the same status as, say, Reedland or Heath?
Heath,
Yeah.
right, same thing.
It would just dissolve back into the county. It would be.
I'm glad you brought up Reedland. If any people from Reedland are watching this,
Hope they are.
yes, and I hope they are too. There's plans for the city of Paducah out around exit 11. They're beginning to knock on your door. You're a pretty good sized city, or could be. And you might want to take a serious look at incorporating yourself. That's just a thought.
Were any communities ever incorporated before, like Lone Oak? Now, Lone Oak goes back a number of years from the actual Lone Oak, the big oak tree that grew in the prairie grass out there. Was Lone Oak ever incorporated before?
No. I think that there was an attempt maybe at incorporating before, but they really couldn't get everybody together. And that's why I say, the original incorporated Lone Oak was just strictly a protection area for those businesses along 45. And the way that business has been or was carried on was simply just, incorporate, stop Paducah from taking our businesses, and then, we don't want to do anything else. We just want to stop them from coming in here, which, that is not a community make just because you incorporate. And the commission that we have right now, myself as the mayor, our main focus is putting together that community and getting that, functioning the way that it should be, and not sitting back and saying, well, let's not rock the boat. We're looking at water drainage issues. We just did a major paving project. One of the things that was kind of a sticking point is we had a surplus of money. Well, that took 13 years to build that surplus and one paving project to take and get rid of half of it. So, and we have tried and we have been successful in running a city that's not in debt. looking back on it, maybe we should have gone into debt, because then this wouldn't even be an issue. They wouldn't be able to dissolve us if we were in debt. But
Really?
Yes, in the law, if a city is in debt, it cannot be dissolved.
Well, that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
but we have tried, and we have been successful in keeping us out of debt, in doing the best that we can to keep things above board, and we've been reorganizing government. We've been trying to get out there and find out what the problems are, and start to address those, rather than sitting back hands off and saying, if we don't do that over there, then we're not responsible for it. Because that's just not how I want things and how the commissioners want things run anymore. And it's...
For those of us from foreign areas like Mayfield, what is this 3/10? Now, when I come in to town to work, about Lone Oak Baptist Church, Lone Oak Methodist Church, okay, now I'm in the Lone Oak area. So
No.
what is that? Obviously I'm not. But what is the 3/10 approximately?
On Lone Oak Road, it's roughly from Super Value to Durbin's.
Okay.
Right in that. And the other thing that is kind of interesting, it's a perfect square. So the city boundaries runs through the middle of properties. Again, they just picked the perfect square, plopped it down.
Now, how does that work? If let's say your kitchen and your toilet are in Lone Oak and your bedrooms are in the county.
That's been somewhat of a problem in
Yes,
the
it has.
past. Basically, what's kind of going on is if the house is inside the incorporated area, then you pay taxes. If your house is outside,
So
if
any
it
part
just-
of the house.
Yeah, if any part of the
So
house
if
is in.
6 feet of my house is in the city and the rest are,
But the big problem has been, who do you call when there's a problem? Because your house is right on the line.
Right.
The county will say, you need to call Lone Oak. And in the past, Lone Oak has said, well, no, you're in the county. I've had several people who've called me and said, well, this has been going on. And I said, I'm sorry that this has been going on. I will come out and look and see what we can do. Because there has been confusion as to who's where. And one of our future projects is to go to those places. I had a GIS map made, ironically, by the city of Paducah. And their engineer said, why did they do this? Why did they not follow property lines? And I said, don't ask me. I was only, 4 years old, 5 years old. And
we're
so,
very rapidly running out of time. You did mention earlier that this coming Monday,
Yes.
you're going to have
Yes.
a meeting.
Right.
Give us some time and where.
it will be at the Linden Plantation, there between Lone Oak Pharmacy and Buddy Pugh Auto.
And it'll be what time?
7 o'clock. We have invited all of the residents. We sent letters to the residents to come. Sheriff Hayden, Coroner Sims, and Jailer Adams will be there. There will be some Lone Oak business people. I will be there, as well as the Lone Oak Police Department.
And hopefully it can be a robust and honest exchange of ideas.
Oh,
And
so.
again,
Yes.
before we go off
Hope
the
so.
air, I want to extend an invitation to the other side of this argument. There are always two sides of an argument, and I can be reached at 534-3270. We're out of time. My guests today were Mayor Kimberly Stevens and Commissioner Roger Dew of the City of Lone Oak. I'm Barry Craig. Please join us next time.